Well, yeah, welcome everybody. I'm Ryan, like Jamie said. I am, well, I can say I'm many things. I'm based in Gloucester in the UK. I do a bit of professional Scrum training. I'm a consultant. And I also do a bit of recruiting, dirty word, but a bit of recruiting as well, to help people get Scrum Master, product owner, any jobs really in the Agile sector. And I'm here today pretty much to try and answer everything. And what I want to start by saying is that there's a lot of you here, and I don't want you to just think that the next 45 minutes are like a one-hit wonder. It's the only time you can ever talk to me. You have LinkedIn, email, website, anything. If you've got any questions, we'll take it offline. This is just a synchronous time. We can take it offline and be asynchronous through a chat. So please do ask any questions you've got, however silly you may feel. I used to be a chemistry teacher for a long old time. However stupid your question is, trust me, a child has asked a more stupid one. So please do go for it. If you want some funny ones, hey, it's an Ask Me Anything. You can ask me that later. One thing I did want to say, we had a giveaway for this session for some AirPods. And congratulations, we had 150 people signed up for this session. Was it 3, Jamie, or 4 managed to read the rules and ask questions in advance? So we have a giveaway for some Apple AirPods. So do you want to put the spinner up and we'll see who wins before we go straight into the session?
Okay, so yeah, we had 3, so it's not going to be much of a spin here, but
hey, 3 people followed the rules. One of you is going to get some AirPods.
All right, can you see my screen?
Oh, I can, yeah.
All right, here we go. Oh,
there we go. Well, congratulations, Eunice. You've won some Apple AirPods.
Question so is, are you here, Eunice?
I'm here.
Woo! Yay!
Congratulations.
Congrats, Eunice. I will connect with you afterwards and get your information, and we'll get some Apple AirPods sent your way.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. So, folks, AMA is going to start. Jamie is going to be the facilitator. So, Jamie, over to you, and I'm ready to answer all of your questions.
All right. Let me. Got a little too excited about the spinning the wheel that I lost my Miro board. I think I just have too many windows open. That's the problem. All right, here we go. So let's see if I can find. We're going to start because she was the winner. Let's start with Eunice's question. Let me find it.
Do we want people to be able to ask questions in the chat as well, Jamie? Is that just
so,
on the Miro?
Let's do this. I'm going to share a link. Unless, did you already share a link, Katrin?
I think she said she's going to do it now. There we go.
Yes. Okay.
So, folks, if you want to go onto that Miro, feel free to go on and ask some questions.
Yep, and actually, if you need more stickies, just copy and paste. Don't worry about the categories. There's categories along the top. Don't worry about those. Just put a sticky anywhere. All right, so we're gonna start with if I can find it here. There we go. So this is Eunice's question. Okay. What is your favorite book on Scrum that also includes resources for remote settings?
Oh, okay. Favorite book on Scrum that includes resources. I think I still think, which sounds really awful for such an Agile career, I don't really think Scrum and Agile is really caught up yet to virtual in terms of books. There's a couple of the obvious ones that a lot of people will say. Things like, well, not necessarily aligned with Scrum, but things like Training from the Back of the Room. They're really good books. I really like, there's a guy called Dylan William. He has a book called Black Box Thinking. It's really, really good. Edward de Bono's Thinking Hats is a really nice one too, about different kind of mentalities and the way we learn. It's a bit of brain science in that one. But as for specific books that are tied to Scrum and learning, I'm not sure I've ever come across one. I mean, things like, what's it called? Things that are like coaching generally. There's a really good book it's by Agile 42 called Hitchhiker's Guide to Agile Coaching. It's really, really good. Particularly, I love the bit on active listening. So I guess there's some skill-based books, but I've never seen this is how you should run a workshop remotely for Scrum. Although I know it's not asked me anything. Does anybody else have anything? Always bring your towel. If you would like to drop any other answers for Eunice into the chat, do feel free. I feel like I've just taken a pass on the very first question.
Okay, no, you did take a pass. You got some good things. I think there are books out there. There are books out there on remote facilitation. I don't know if there are ones that combine Scrum and remote facilitation. You kind of have to take the lessons from the remote facilitation books out there and combine that with that. So
if people are interested in facilitation, just watch out for the next couple of weeks. There's some big releases coming soon on how to do Scrum facilitation remotely. So give it a couple of weeks and then check back with me and I've got more information for you.
Yep.
There's another good book, actually. It's called Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is a product available for Google Classroom, but they're called, there's books about TLAC. It's like an American thing. It's Teach Like a Champion. They are really, really good, good resources. So have a little look at those on Amazon. Okay.
That sounds good. All right. So here's another question. This one was from one of our other entries from Asia. What's the best career path to transition into a Scrum Master role?
The best career path. So from or
well, yeah, Daisha, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more, but I'm thinking transition into a Scrum Master role. How do you get that first Scrum Master job or role in your company? You know.
Yeah, so taking that question at face value, how do you get into Scrum from a career which you maybe haven't done? So I was a head of chemistry in a secondary school, like I said. So getting your foot in the door is the hardest thing. Yeah, everyone knows that, and what they're trying to figure out is how to get that crack open. A couple of things I would always advise you do. The first thing is people can't hire you. A lot of hiring takes place on LinkedIn. I know people hate LinkedIn for some reasons. Making yourself visible, you know, hi, I'm a teacher and I'm looking to transition into Scrum. Yeah, I'm ex-military and I'm looking to transition into Scrum. People, if you ask them for help, you know, how do I do this? How do I facilitate a daily Scrum? Getting lots of comments out there. A really good example, I spoke to a lady called Amanda Taylor in the US, right? She is huge on LinkedIn now, but, you know, 4 or 5 months ago, she wasn't. And she was trying to transition from teaching into Scrum. So the first thing I'd do is make yourself really visible. Part of the other thing is you're just going to have to suck it up and send a lot of applications in. Yeah, that's definitely step 2, sadly. But trying to differentiate yourself from the pack is the most important thing, right? A lot of people, and I'm probably doing myself a disservice now, right? You can't just take a PSM1 class and think you're going to get a job, because there's going to be a lot of people who are in a similar situation with a CSM, a PSM, PSM2. Certs are probably not going to win you the job. They might get you through the first step, the CV sift, as we call it in the UK. I don't know if that's the same, resume sift probably in the US. But then at interview, what you're going to need to do is do scenario-based responses. And it's really hard to do that unless you've been there. So the biggest piece of advice I would give you is contact Scrum Masters, arrange coffee chats with them, start to build up your scenario-based knowledge, and make sure you put that stuff into your resume. Don't just use buzzwords, empiricism, values, all that kind of stuff. Talk about the outcomes you've generated. So for me as a teacher, I still remember one of the things I wrote when I was transitioning, which was I worked with teachers to identify a goal, right? And I know I'm not using Scrum language here. I worked with my teachers to figure out a goal for our curriculum. We then collectively figured out who was going to do what, and then we could make a commitment and come back frequently to evaluate what kind of lessons we were planning together. I can talk about the value we generated, the fact that we were being focused, making commitments. Those are the kind of things. It's the outcomes that matter rather than, oh, I used the right Scrum word. Yeah, that would be my advice.
And I'll also put a plug in there for our Discord community. There is an ongoing conversation on this exact topic. So if you're not part of the Discord community and want to check that out, I would head over there and find that there's a thread on that, or you can reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction exactly where to find that thread on Discord. Okay, so
keep them coming.
So on new teams, some team members are forced to do Scrum, and they're not really open to it. They think, well, we've been doing it this way for this long. Developers, I'm not picking on developers, but they just want to code, want to get their work done. All these extra meetings, So what would you do to?
So this is a great opportunity for me to tell a story then. So this happened to me, to be fair, in pretty much every other contracting job I've ever been in. However, this is not uncommon. So what I tend to do is, obviously, as most Scrum Masters do, let's have a workshop. However, when they come into the workshop, I say, right, I want you to park everything you've ever known about Scrum, Agile, Waterfall, all the frameworks, Kanban, all of that. And we're just going to talk about outcomes now. What does a good workflow look like for you? And they're going to mention things like, because they're developers, if we're talking from a software perspective, they're going to talk about reducing technical debt, the ability to deploy work consistently and frequently. But we also like to know where we're going. We like to have the opportunity to innovate. Build all those things out as a group. And then what you can start to do, and this isn't a persuasion tactic, but sometimes organizations do say, you got to use Scrum. You can then start tying some of those things that they've actually said they've wanted. Well, this is how Scrum supports that. And I'm not a purist when it comes to Scrum. So, if teams say, do you know what? This bit just doesn't work for us. I would rather teams be 70% of the way there than 100% trying to do it because they don't need, because they feel like they've been told to. Yeah. Try it with the framework as it is, and then empirically adapt. That's what Scrum is. Yeah. It's the Shuhari kind of way of thinking. If you transition past Scrum, there's nothing wrong with that. The one thing I never accept from teams is, yeah, we don't want to try that because that's just not okay. Try it and bin it. That is a retrospective cycle for you. Hopefully that answers the question. That's what I would do anyway.
So there's a question here. If Scrum Master is the accountability, not a role, can anyone take up that responsibility or accountability rather than having a dedicated person?
So I'm going to interpret that question, Lord, please feel free to correct me. The person who asked it is, can a Scrum Master rotate around the team? Does Scrum say you can't? No. Should you? Hell no. Yeah. So just because there's not a boundary for it, there's not a boundary, if you look at it, that says a product owner can't move around either. It says it's one person and not a committee. It doesn't mean it's the same person. But what we can talk about here is boundaries and rules, because at the top of the Scrum Guide, it's the rules of the game. There isn't a rule. But think about the transparency that will be lost if that Scrum Master rotates around the team, if the product owner rotates around the team. A Scrum Master is like a coach. In football, you wouldn't rotate. I mean, Alex Ferguson from the US, I'm talking Manchester United because we were talking about it. You don't rotate the coach around the team. Oh, does the forward want to do it this game? A Scrum Master has a specific set of skills, to quote Liam Neeson in Taken. Yeah, I have a specific set of skills. And like I would never pretend to go away and be able to write some amazing Java code, being a Scrum Master, being a product owner, being a developer is an accountability, sure. Can someone step into it when they're on holiday? Yeah, because it needs to be fulfilled. But I don't believe that everyone has the mentality or the skills to be able to be a Scrum Master, to be a X, Y, and Z. So if you can fulfill the accountability, yes, please make sure that is done as a stand-in basis, and then there is typically one person that fulfills the Scrum Master and fulfills the product owner. There you go. So can you yes, should you no?
All right, so here's a really good one, because I see this often. And
Okay.
Would you run away from a job description? So you're looking through
I already
LinkedIn
know the
jobs.
question.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm going to ask, don't you?
Yeah. Do you want to finish it just so before I make an assumption?
I think that was me.
The project manager / Scrum Master.
Yeah. Okay.
How you guys doing?
So would I run away?
Hear me?
By our reaction already, what we would do.
Yeah. Sorry, Michael. I can hear you. Do you want to speak?
Hey, hi, troublemaker. So you would remember me from that phrase that we had spoken, and then you had sent me this. I actually had asked that question. I'm so sorry I took it away from you. I just wanted to make that. It's just something that we've been experiencing a lot. And the question is, would you run away from a job description that says project manager / Scrum Master? You know, and I get to see this a lot. Like a couple of people say business analyst and Scrum Master or project manager, and they still want to keep that like waterfall way of doing things, even though they want to say that they're doing agile, probably steal some of the roles and say, oh, we have a product owner, or oh, we got a group of people called the developers, and this is our Scrum Master. But the process is still very much waterfall. Like, what would you do in that sense? Thank you.
So would I run away from it? No. I'm in a very fortunate position now that I've been doing this for a few years, that I can be quite picky about jobs. And as will most of you once you've done it for a couple of years. But I had an interview with a very large US defense contractor 3 years ago, and that's the job I applied for, project manager, Scrum Master. And I kind of sit them down and say, do you know what is the outcome that you actually want? Because if you talk about outcomes rather than titles, I couldn't care less if you called me a Scrum Wizard or a project manager or an Agile coach. For me, it's about finding the right tools for the job, and I kind of fit myself where's needed. And also interviews and things like that are opportunities to coach. If you're a Scrum Master, you're probably going to be living these professional values, the ethics, and you just got to call it out. The interviewer for me sat there and went, so what's the best project manager you've ever seen? And I went, well, to be perfectly honest, I've never really met any. I've never really met good project managers. And I'll clarify that because there's probably some project managers here, because I think project managers are very tactical, and I define good by actual long-term outcomes and value for the product. I think a project manager is a great supporting role, but I've never seen it as something that leads value. And so, yeah, would I run away from it? No, but God, I'd probably question. I don't even know why I applied for that job. I was probably desperate at the time. But yeah, I'm not bothered about the title. But as soon as I see things like we want someone to control the daily Scrum, line manage developers, write reports, that's the kind of stuff I run away from.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to another question. That's a great question. I've seen that a lot. I've even seen solution architect / Scrum Master. What?
You know what? Right. But nowhere does it say a Scrum Master is a full-time accountability.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Let's see. There was a question that I had here, and now it's disappeared. The one that I was going to ask you next. It looks like somebody's changed their mind.
Well, chuck any at them. I want to answer as many as possible.
Okay, so we'll just move on. So, what are your thoughts on who should attend the daily Scrum? Just the team? What about observers such as people managers?
Okay. My thoughts on it. My thoughts don't matter. Your developers' opinions matter. So whilst I think that can it be helpful for people to sit there and listen? Yeah, actually I do. I can't see a problem sometimes with creating more transparency. However, as soon as they open their mouths, that's sometimes when things go wrong. So if I was, I'm going to give you an example there, if I was a people manager and I was just sitting there, if my purpose of being there was to genuinely find out how people were progressing towards the sprint goal, if they had any impediments. If I was there with the purest of intentions to help, no problem whatsoever. As soon as there is an intention there of, I want to keep track that, I don't know, Steve is fully utilized, or, you know, Jenny's not just turning up 15 minutes late every time, I think you come in there for the wrong reason. So no problem with people being there, but ask it in the next retrospective, you know, developers, what did you think about the product owner, the Scrum Master, these stakeholders being present? I don't tend to have a problem with product owners and Scrum Masters being there, even though it is an event by the developers for the developers. I get a bit more worried because I think the risk is increased when you have people fully outside the Scrum team. There you go.
All right. So
if people have follow-ups to this, by the way, please do feel free. Like, I don't want this just to be didactic asking. Yeah, okay. Chat, unmute, go for it.
Any comments on that?
Cool.
All right. So Daniel Vacanti's book on forecasting. Is this the actionable agile metrics book? Is that, or is there another one he has? But anyway, what do you think about it versus story pointing? So I think we're talking about flow metrics.
I'm going to be really rude now and say I've never read it. So I actually don't know what he's saying in that book.
Oh, and he also wrote, and when will it be done?
So I can genuinely only talk really about my opinions on story pointing. I don't know what Daniel Vacanti was talking about. If it's general
talking about flow metrics, like ways to measure, to me, they feel like two different things, because flow metrics is really about measuring the team's performance, and story pointing is about capacity planning, right? So I don't know if one or the other.
Metrics are so specific to the particular team. I don't think you can, you know, apply a brush and say this is the best metric. And I'm sure that's not what Daniel Vacanti was saying, but I tend to find, you know, if a team wants to use story pointing, go for it. Like, as long as you're not using it with bad intentions and you're trying to game the metric. Yeah, there's you know, that quote that I'm sure everyone's heard: as soon as a metric is being chased for the purposes of achieving the metric, you've already lost the game, basically. Yeah. So flow metrics are really useful, probably not solely. Story pointing can be useful, not solely. The point is, use the metrics that are appropriate for the team, the type of work you're doing, and then go from there. Managing metrics are part of a Scrum team's job. It's probably product backlog items. It's probably going to be raised in the sprint review. Metrics are really important. So having them is better than not having them. But the worst of all is having them without using them. So use metrics that are of value to you, and that's it.
So any follow-up on that? I'm not sure who asked that question, but do you have any additional questions or follow-up on that?
Sorry, yeah, Samuel here. I just came across that book not long ago, and I've been reading it. And one of the reasons why I asked that question is because recently I had a job interview, and they told me that the development team do not want to be using story pointing.
Okay.
And it's kind of made me look for alternative ways to try and help out the team. And I think I came across that book. This is one of the reasons why I was asking to find out if anyone has actually come across it, and whether they trialed it and seen the value in it.
So if a team doesn't want to use story pointing, the fact that they're telling you that is actually really good. They're actually commenting on their process and saying that they don't like it. As soon as you get like anyone saying, well, we have to use story points, I go, okay, what's the complexity it's going to take you to eat that sandwich? 3.
I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's not so much from the team's perspective. I think it's from the business side, asking when things are going to be delivered. And I think that's where the challenge is at the moment, because as a product owner, I'd rather let the team do what they need to do. But
story pointing does not equate to value. That's the be all, you know, it doesn't. And quite frankly, that would be my response to managers who say you must use story points, because F off as far as I'm concerned. If the team make a commitment and they deliver a commitment, that's great. If they make a commitment and then don't meet it, it is absolutely okay to say, why not? But what you can't do is say, oh, these 3 things add up to 25. That means I'll get it in 3 weeks. See you later, guys. I'm going to tell everyone. No. Yeah.
So here's a good one. How do you facilitate the daily Scrum? What works best for you? As we all know, the daily Scrum being a status meeting is one of the biggest anti-patterns in Scrum, in my opinion. So Ryan, how do you facilitate daily Scrum so it's not a status meeting?
3 words. I do not. I don't facilitate it.
Well, true. Okay.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not being sarcastic to you, Jim.
Teach the team to run, the developers to run their data. How do you coach them on that?
Yeah. So I'll be a bit less sarcastic in this answer then. So when I attend Daily Scrum, and I typically do go to them, even though I don't have to, is the first kind of thing. I tend to find developers don't like starting to talk, but when you start them talking, you can't stop them talking. So I'll typically say something like, so the sprint goal was this. I'll probably read the sprint goal. Where are we at with that? And then stop. Start them talking about the sprint goal, because what's going to happen at that point is someone's going to start talking, someone else will jump in, then someone else will, and you're starting to create that round discussion that is actually the purpose of the daily Scrum. If it makes them happy to then do a quick round the room at the end, fine. It's your daily Scrum, you do what you want. But the worst daily Scrums are, I worked on this thing yesterday, I'm going to be doing the same thing again today, and I'll probably be doing the same thing tomorrow. Useless. Talking about the sprint goal, if it takes 3 minutes, that is way more useful than a quick round the room. So for me, if I can coach them to talk about the sprint goal, I'm happy. Beyond that, I'm doing a bad job.
All right.
Kima, I think you've got a comment on that. Go for it. Or that was
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. I just joined this Zoom and I was able to listen in. The reason I joined, and I don't know if I'm cutting anyone, I am just starting my career and I want to get into being Scrum Master. And my struggle is which certification I should go for. Many organizations offer that certification. So I found scrum.org, then Scrum Alliance, then PMI has something, and then I found something called as SCM.
Okay.
So I'm just not like Scrum Study something. So I'm just not sure, and if anyone can guide me on what has worked for them or which organization financially. So Scrum.org seems affordable, but I don't know if it does have any market value.
Okay, so should we take that question, Jamie, generally about certifications then? I'll address that one then. So I've got to be really respectful here. Scrum is written by 2 people, Ken and Jeff, and they have their respective companies, Scrum.org and Scrum Alliance. Those are typically the 2 most respected in the world. PMI don't own Scrum. Typically, it's called the Project Management Institute. My personal opinion would be I'd stay away from, if I wanted project management, PMI is probably where I'd go. Scrum Study, run. It would be my opinion. Again, they don't own Scrum. Scrum.org and Scrum Alliance would be the 2. I align myself with Scrum.org for 2 reasons. The first of which is that once you have passed the assessment, it lasts for life. There's no continuous renewal fee. And secondly, I personally, and the main reason is that I don't believe that you should have to attend a class in order to become certified. I accept that as an ex-teacher that people learn in lots of different ways, and I should be able to validate myself based on if I've done 10 years experience. If I go down the Scrum Alliance CSM route, I have to still take the course to be able to access the assessment. At Scrum.org, we say, if you've got 10 years experience and you want to pay $150, go for it. You don't need necessarily to come to someone like me to have a 2-day training class, but if you want it, you can do it. So those are kind of the options. So I always advise people take, I'm going to say it generally now, PSM or CSM as their initial access route. But then the most important thing is that they go away and get experience. A PSM2 is not really going to be accessible for people who haven't got much experience. So that would be my advice, Kumar. Does that help you?
Okay, thank you. That really helps.
Of course, my general opinion as well is there is one trainer, a guy called Ram Srivanasan. He's a CST and a PST. He has written a really fantastic blog like late last year called PSM versus CSM. And it's written from the perspective of a trainer who genuinely trains both. So he's probably the least biased person you can get. His opinion is that PSM is better, but I would encourage everyone to read that blog so that I'm not being disrespectful to other providers.
No, I think that's a good point. And coming from someone who holds both certifications in both, I would say personally my experience with Scrum.org has been superior to my experience with Scrum Alliance, just in terms of you know, what the knowledge that you have to know to even pass their exams is very different, and a much deeper level of understanding is needed to even pass the Scrum.org certification. So the learning journey is greater, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. For what it's worth.
Added the link in.
So do recruiters, if I show them Scrum.org or Scrum Alliance, does it matter? Or I'm just curious, like what's your guys' experience been?
It
So I'll
can.
answer this one quickly as possible. Scrum Alliance tends to be, even though they're both American-based companies, CSM tends to be more dominant in the North American market. PSM tends to be more dominant in the European market. So it depends where you want to go for. That's obviously not a hard and fast rule, but that's been my experience from because I recruit as well.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Over to you, Jamie. Next question.
Next question. How do you measure the sprint progress against the sprint goal, since the burn down uses story points or number of stories or hours on the y-axis?
Yeah. So the first thing is, again, I don't. It sounds like this is a JIRA question. So how do I measure it? To be perfectly honest, most of the teams I work with, when they use a burn down, it stays flat because they don't mark anything until magically in the sprint review, everything gets done and it looks like a flat line, like they've just died. So I'm not a fan of burn downs, but I do see for some teams, they are a valuable tool. The most important way that I measure, are we on track for the sprint goal, is I just ask the team. So occasionally, maybe once or twice a sprint, I'll put a question in the Teams channel. Thumbs up, are we on track for meeting the sprint goal? Or shocked face for no, we probably aren't. And that's the metric for me, because at the end of the day, they've made the commitment to meet it. My job to track it is their job to tell me if they're having any problems with it. Not my job to keep poking them saying, you sure? You sure you're going to meet it? You sure you're going to meet it? That just pisses everyone off.
Yeah.
Okay. How long have we got left, Jim? We've got about 10 minutes. Let's do super fast blast. Let's keep going.
Super fast blast. Okay, how do we decide the sprint length?
You ask the team, but the biggest thing I would say when it comes to sprint length is if you can't get it done in a sprint, don't lengthen the sprint. What that's telling you is that you are not defined well enough, that you can't get it done, and the complexity is too much that you can't forecast. Shorten the sprint so that you can get it done, and then if you need to lengthen it, that's it. So you ask the team how long it takes to get a piece of work done, and that's it. If they can't do it, shorten the sprint with their permission.
All right, how do you write a sprint goal when you have different work items, features, enablers, tech debts, defects?
Oh, I tell you what, right, writing a good sprint goal is even every PST's nightmare, right? Writing a good sprint goal is really tough. The easiest way to write a sprint goal is using the product goal, the vision, and then, so I wrote a blog actually called this, what did I call it? The sprint goal hypothesis. And it's a document that takes about 15 minute sprint hypothesis. That was it. And there's like a 6-step way of starting to write and consider a sprint goal. Now, when you say you've got lots of different work items, it sounds like what you've not got there is a coherent focus to go towards. Not everything in a sprint backlog has to be moving towards the sprint goal. But when you've got so much crap that you can't actually create a coherent sprint goal, what you've actually got there is an underlying problem of probably undone work. It's not really a word we use anymore, but undone work, technical debt that's preventing you from saying, do you know what? This is the most valuable thing. What's going to happen in that case is you're going to create silos in your team because, I don't know, Jenny and Steve work on support. These two are the C++ developers. These guys deal with, I don't know, infrastructure, and you're siloing your team. So how do I write a good sprint goal? I use that sprint goal, 15-minute sprint hypothesis, and I work with my product owner because it's not my job to write them.
So if a Scrum Master is handling only one Scrum team, what does a Scrum Master do on a daily basis when developers are busy coding?
Okay. Do you know what, right? It's a fair question. And a lot of people think junior Scrum Master 1 team, senior Scrum Master 2 teams, or 3 teams, right? Absolute corporate BS. What does a Scrum Master do? Sometimes very little. Sometimes they just sit there, arrange coffee breaks with people, talk to people, get transparency. But what we need to remember is that when a Scrum Master is working with a Scrum team, they work at multiple levels. Yeah, they work with developers, but then they're probably also meeting with the organization, finding out what's coming around around the corner. They're also coaching the product owner, having one-to-ones with the team, talking about product backlog management, maybe doing some training. I do that with my organization right now. So if you ask the developers on my team, is Ryan busy? They'd say no, because they probably don't talk to me as often as they think probably I just turn up to daily scrums and then see them again 24 hours later. I promise them I am doing stuff if they watch this video. What does a Scrum Master do? It can be absolutely anything. Most likely for me, it's working with the organization and the product owner to make sure that value is coherent and that the teams don't get blinded from the side.
All right. Vishal, do you have something, or is it Vishal or Vishal?
Hi, this is Vishal.
You've got your hand up, mate. I think that's why Jamie asked you.
Yeah, sorry. I was looking forward to lower my hand first.
Cool.
Waste
Oh,
a couple
okay.
of seconds. Okay.
Keep going.
So Jamie mentioned in the beginning, you are her mentor for PSM3 journey. That got my attention. I have 18 years of experience total into IT since 2015, working into different agile roles, have multiple certifications, few from Scrum Alliance, CSM, CSP or CSP, PSM, PSM2 from Scrum.org, and very much interested to go forward for my PSM3 and PSC journey. Can I be blessed with your mentorship?
Oh, that puts me on the spot quite a lot. I'm incredibly busy. I do have a blog about it, and I'm quite happy to do asynchronous stuff, but I couldn't commit to being a personal mentor. But yeah, I absolutely do want to support any of you who are going through a PST journey. Once you've applied, you will get to be joined into a Slack channel with all of our other candidates. And actually the mentorship almost comes from within, which I love. But yeah, there's people like me in there as well. And there's a couple of other active PSTs in there. John Riley is an awesome one. Zurian Salahi. Who else is in there? Well, there's so many more in there. So, big names as well, like Ryan Ripley, my namesake, who I occasionally get confused with, which is awesome for me. But yeah, I will gladly help you, Vishal, as much as I honestly can do.
Sure, we'll bug you on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Right, we've got 5 minutes left, Jamie.
5 minutes. So how would you explain Scrum to one of your elementary school teachers? Or let's just put it this way, that's probably a bad way to even put it, because elementary school teachers are very intelligent. I think what's meant by that question is someone who doesn't know, who isn't familiar with software development or IT or this whole idea of Agile or Scrum, knows nothing about any of that. How would you explain what you do for a living if you're a Scrum Master?
Firstly, take all the software out of it. And I literally just say, as a Scrum Master, what I help do is coach teams to deliver more value. So that's the first thing I say. But then also I just say, really, it's a common sense framework that allows people to choose how they want to do work, making sure they get closer to the mission and closer to the users. That's it, really. Because if they don't have anything to hook onto Scrum, the rest of it is just, I could give the whole, oh, you know, we create adaptive solutions to complex problems. That's not going to land with a lot of people. So talking about value, which is really what Scrum comes down to, getting done work that's able to be inspected, bosh, finito. Can I answer the retro formats question? Because that's a question in
I
green.
don't think so. What are your favorite retro formats?
Yeah, right. I'll do that one. Only because yesterday I had the best retrospective I've had in 6 years. It's called the White Elephant Retrospective. It's completely available on scrum.org by, I think Claudia wrote it, Califano. Literally what you do, and this is the way I did it, I had a number line of it absolutely balls the pants off me to absolutely blooming marvelous. That's very UK slang. And I had 10 stickies at the top. I had this the sprint events, I had the artifacts, the commitments, an individual, we went down the team's register, got to put a sticky onto the number line, how good they thought it was. They defended their point and we discussed it. I took notes, we had actions and we had comments. And the amazing discussions we got out of a team who typically don't enjoy retrospectives were really good, because when they had someone had to defend, I don't know, sprint goals, when they had to then discuss where they put it, we started getting people fighting. It's like story pointing in a way, and it was really super successful. So yeah, the White Elephant Retrospective is a really, really good one. I don't really like gamification. I think that's good, but I think sometimes we can get lost in the fact it's a game. As long as you can get them in and hooked, I sometimes use like 80s, 90s video games, because I've got typically old white dudes on my team. That just helps hook them. But yeah, you can, favorite retro formats are just ones that get people involved.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
What else have we got, Jamie?
I think we're running. We've got 2 minutes. Shall we do?
Well, I'm happy to go 15 minutes on, so I'm quite happy to do that. But I appreciate some facilitators may have to leave.
Okay. Let me check my own calendar, Ryan. Now you put me on the spot.
Well, I'll keep answering them, Jamie, from what I can see while you check. So I can see there's a question.
I'm good. Keep answering them. So,
okay.
So, what's the best online collaboration tool for estimation?
Oh, I mean, estimation is I can see someone's put a hashtag no estimate up there. So I'm going to try and answer these both together. If the team genuinely want to estimate using something like story points, there are tools available for that. Honestly, as long as it is synchronous, I don't care if people start shouting out numbers. You know, I think it's a 3, I think it's a 5. The point isn't about the number, the point is a discussion. So I prefer not to use any tools. But if I do, we use Mural and we use the comparative bucket sizing technique. So we'll have, you know, small, medium and large buckets. We'll quickly drag them into the buckets and then just make sure that we're all on the same page. I find that the longer refinement takes and the more you're focused on the number, the less effective it's going to be. So just do it fast and focus on the discussion. And I use Mural for that.
So Michael's asking, without a tool for like planning poker,
Yeah.
do you find anchoring to become a problem?
Yeah, sometimes. I'm very lucky in that I've got quite a mature team, both in age and in Scrum maturity. And we tend not to have that. We have a pretty good culture. But yeah, there is always an element of anchoring. But I find that, honestly, even if I do use a tool, if I use a tool that has a question mark, people will just use that and there'll be 2 or 3 people that vote. But even then, as soon as, I don't know, let's say James is the anchor, as soon as he says his number and we review who's got it, it anchors anyway. So I just make sure that the only thing I've ever done is said, you're not allowed to speak during this estimation. I've been really like blunt about it. We don't want you to talk about this because we know you know the most. Let's see what everyone else has got before we contribute. And that's really nice because they also get a bit of a kudos because they know they're the probably a senior tech. But yeah, that's what I do. I appreciate, by the way, if anybody's got to leave, it's 6 o'clock. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope people have found it valuable, but I'm going to stay for another 15. So yeah, keep them coming, Jamie.
All right. So I am curious to know if there are any proven better techniques to explain the relevance or the importance of Scrum events to team members, especially the few developers who are just being concerned about their own work rather than being concerned and dedicated about team goals and help team members if they're struggling. Basically, how do you get their thought process aligned to a team?
So what I've done in the past is we did an activity where we drew a box and I put a little picture on it and said developer. And I asked them to write everything that they think they did as a developer in a box. Basically, job description. What do you do? And then we had a hidden one next to it that said the Scrum developer. And what we tried to get the difference of is that, I work in software, so I'm using those kind of examples, but a developer is not just a coder. It is still your job to attend sprint planning, to call users, to work with UI, UX, to write product backlog items with the product owner. And we started to figure out differences between these two, knowing that Scrum developer is what they're actually being paid for. And then we mapped how the events could support the developers doing the rest of their job. How could you do product backlog items? What do you need to do that? Well, I'm going to need to call the users. I'm going to need to work with my product owner. And they start to build out a picture of what their job actually is. And then they start realizing that the empirical Scrum events can help them do that.
Good one. I like that. So what Agile anti-pattern frustrates you the most?
It's not really a pattern. I just freaking hate the term stand up. It just absolutely does my nut in. But no, the most awful Agile anti-pattern that I have seen is oh god, it's bad when you've got so many to pick from. I absolutely hate story points being told to project managers who then try and compare the teams. The story I always tell is that when I was at a company called BAE, 2 teams, same product, we pointed 1, 3, 5, 8. Let's say we did 30 points in a sprint. The team next to me, Poseidon, they did times 10, 20, 30. Team that does 30, a team that does 300. Which do you think the product managers and the project managers did more work? Hate it. Bonkers, but it is a very common pattern because people like to be able to measure people.
Yep, agree with that. Does it help to know any coding language as a Scrum Master?
You could argue actually. We have in the product owner course, we have technical product owner. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? There's swings and roundabouts. There's pros and cons from both. Does it improve transparency? Yeah, actually it does. I think it is better for a product owner to have technical domain skills than it is for a Scrum Master. I genuinely work on my team now. I've been on my team now for about 13, 14 months. I couldn't tell you what the product does. I have absolutely no idea. Like, it is so technical, which is part of it, but I just couldn't tell you. I kind of roughly would say it, but I don't need to know. And the coding thing, yeah, I don't think it does help. If anything, I do have a bit of coding understanding, but it would just start making me want to help solutioneer. So I think actually being able to step back and just coaching, it helps you to be a passive participant and bite your tongue. That'd be my opinion.
All right. So remote versus co-located, what do you prefer?
Oh, I mean, I'd be very surprised if there were many Scrum Masters with the kind of mentality that we have as people that would prefer remote. I personally absolutely prefer in person because I believe that a lot of the impediment resolution and those niggles that actually really piss them off, you find them out by sitting next to them when they go, and you go, well, let's go and have a walk or a chat. The best, honestly, the best coaching, go and take a walk around the park with them. You'll get way more in a walk. Go and sit and do your retrospectives in this glorious sunshine, no post-its or stickies, sat around a tree outside and just have a talk. Yeah, Scrum is human. So I think you need to be in person. Does remote have some benefits? Yeah. Synchronicity, the fact that you can engage people from different cultures around the world on your same team. Yeah, that's really good. But I don't think you can be in person.
All right. How do you motivate a team as a product owner or Scrum Master?
How do you motivate them? I'm very much a proponent. I know a lot of people hate Daniel Pink's drive, you know, autonomy, mastery, purpose. Motivation comes from within. I can't force you to do it. The only thing I can implement is removing and helping to remove, or causing to remove, I should quote the Scrum Guide, your impediments. And as a product owner, by giving really clear definition and making their job easier by giving focus. That's what a product owner can do. It's what a Scrum Master can do. The motivation, though, has to come from the developers. And if they don't have it, I'd question whether they belong on the team.
Okay. So I am a product management student. I have to choose, or I'm a PM student. I assume that means project management, but maybe not. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have to choose electives from triple constraints. Which do you think aligns the most from triple constraints with Scrum?
When we talk about triple constraints, are we talking about like time, scope, cost? We're talking about the iron triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the way I do it in Scrum, right, that's a project mindset. A product owner really cares about the rest of the stuff. So all of them are relevant to Scrum, but so I can't answer the question of which one's most important. But actually, if you have to pick, it's anything that is outcome based. The example I always give for time, scope, and cost is imagine you're a surgeon, you replace the person's heart, but they've still died. A project manager would think you're still freaking amazing because you did what you said. You delivered the output. A product owner would be like, whoa, 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 the value is in the fact that they're still alive. And so that's where Scrum shifts you to the product mindset outcome versus an output basis. There you go. So yeah, sadly, it's an all or nothing when it comes to Scrum to help you.
So this one is, so you have a new Scrum team starts.
Mm-hmm.
And then the members, so the developers of the team, they don't even could be the product owner and the Scrum Master, even the whole team, they don't get the time for the, they're not dedicated. They don't get that time prioritized for the project as promised from management when they started the Scrum team. And you've raised this to leadership with no effect, basically. Would you decide with the team to stop the project, or do you just accept that in the daily Scrum or retrospective, hearing often that they couldn't progress?
No, so I'm
never meeting your sprint goals, right?
I'm one of these people, Jamie, and I once got told a lovely phrase by a friend of mine, John Albrecht. If you're not pissing someone off as a Scrum Master, you're not doing your job properly. You've constantly got to try and shift the status quo a bit. And I'm genuinely a practicer of radical candor. I don't mind going up to someone super senior and being like, are you joking? Right. I've got a product owner right now, right, who has 1.5 days on my product. It's fine if you want to leave him as 1.5 days, not a problem. What I can't do is deliver any of the stuff that the company have asked for, have any focus for my developers, and I'm probably going to lose 3 or 4 developers because they're getting so frustrated right now. If that's okay if you want it, but I'm just being transparent. I'm also incredibly sarcastic, which does sometimes screw me over a bit. But don't ever sit there and accept it. As soon as you have accepted it, you have lost. Constantly raise it. And if it doesn't happen, we're all individuals. The grass may not always be greener, but you've got to vote with your feet and leave. If a company doesn't value you, leave, because they value you as a bum on a seat, a revenue generator. They don't care about you as an individual. So go somewhere that does. And
it sounds to me like they wouldn't really be committed to Scrum.
No, not really. At all.
Right?
Scrum is one of those things, Jamie. A lot of people do it because they feel like, oh, our competitor is doing it. Wrong reason. Scrum costs a lot of money. So yeah, hold the mirror up and let them see the reflection. If they don't want to look at it, they ugly.
don't even know how to ask the next question. I'm going to take that just as a sound bite.
Well, let's do. Oh God, that's not like a thumbnail, is it? On let's do 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap up.
All right. So if you can change one thing about Scrum, according to the Scrum Guide, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a really awkward thing for me to put on record as a professional Scrum trainer. I was lucky enough to see the Scrum Guide before it got released. And there were quite a lot of changes that got made before the final version. And what would I change? Okay, what I would change is there's a phrase in it that says you have one product backlog, you have one product goal at a time, and it must be abandoned or met before you move on to the next one. I don't see a problem for transparency reasons having multiple product goals, one in progress at a time, and it's still met or abandoned before you move on to the next one. But I think having the others stacked up is really useful. And I think that they should be present in the product backlog. And I know there's a lot of conflict in what I've just said. I haven't really thought it through. However, I think one product goal is good, but for the team to know where they're going next is helpful.
Yeah, I would agree.
Michael?
Hey, yeah, sorry. Feel free to just ignore me if you've got a thing on the back or you'd rather get to. But just speaking of contentious questions and on that topic, what are your thoughts on the actual title of Scrum Master and the contention around that?
We're changing the name Scrum Master. Sorry, no, we're not changing the name. As in, we're changing from a developer's perspective, master to main and things like that. And do you know what? Whilst it doesn't personally affect me, I'm not the people that word oppresses. It's not my right to have an opinion. If it offends people, we need to change it. I personally love, and I know a lot of people don't like it, we have a product owner. A Scrum Master effectively owns the process. I don't think a Scrum owner is the worst name. It's gender neutral. It does what it says on the tin, and I think we should be good. And then having development owners, we're taking it too far, but I think a Scrum owner would be a better name.
Yep. Well, that is all we had, Ryan.
That's all we had. Fantastic.
Anybody else we've got 2 minutes, so anybody else just want to shout one out if you have another question, comment, anything?
No comment from here. For me, I think I just want to say thank you. It was a great and very enlightening session.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Folks, honestly, if you do come up with questions, please do message me. And I'm not pretending that I will even know the answer, but I will always arrange a coffee with you and just try and chat through whatever you need. So, yeah.
Can I ask one quick question? So I've been tasked to help an organization with a product vision. Is that something I seem with some of my friends that I've spoken to, it seems a lot of companies don't tend to have a product vision. Is that something that a team essentially needs, or is this something that's just been sort of as an addition?
So product vision is not part of Scrum, if we're answering it from a Scrum perspective. Is it helpful? Yeah, I do think it is actually. Product goal, and this isn't defined, I tend to view as kind of a 3 to 6 month kind of, that seems safe to me. Sorry, not safe with a capital SAF, Lily. But that seems like a safe horizon for me, 3 to 6 months. However, going longer than that and having a vision of why does this product actually exist in the first place? A product owner should know what the vision is, and having that transparent and clear, yeah, I really do think it helps developers. But the most important thing is that it's not written as kind of like a throwaway. It is actually thought about, the developers truthfully understand it, and that it helps the product owner pivot product goals towards it. As soon as it becomes useless, because you're not pivoting towards it, then no, it's not going to help developers, and it's probably going to be another Confluence page that people never look at again.
Yeah. A lot of those going around.
Cool.
All right, well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. Those of you who join us, thank you for joining us at Scrum Masters of the Universe. I hope we'll see you again at a future meetup, and I hope Ryan will join us again at a future meetup. And again, thank you for your kindness and your sponsorship and supporting Scrum Masters of the Universe. And for you guys, check out Optilearn. Great stuff going on there. So
There's going to be some better stuff coming out in about a month. Like I said, I can't talk about it because it's not mine to talk about. But yeah, facilitation stuff. Stay tuned.
ooh, it's gonna be like Christmas.
A Christmas that you have to pay for. On that note.
All right, or you can ask somebody to buy you this, whatever this is, for a Christmas present.
Well, maybe.
I don't know. They'd be like,
Folks,
you want
I'm going
one?
to put my kids to bed, so I have
Yep.
to leave. But
Yes,
it's been an
thank
absolute
you,
pleasure,
everyone.
and please connect with me. See you later, everybody.
See you
Thanks all.
later.
Bye.
Have a fabulous rest of your day, evening, night.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everyone.